But tonight I came to announce to you that the power of God still sets men free. You don't have to remain bound. The same hand that parted the Red Sea, that broke open prison doors for Paul and Silas, is still mighty to deliver. Your tears have not been ignored. Your prayers have not been in vain. Heaven still answers when faith is genuine. God is waiting for someone, not just to speak words, but to pray until something shifts, to trust until the chains fall off, to believe until the atmosphere changes. It's not about loudness, it's about alignment. When your heart becomes one with His will, when your spirit cries out in surrender, something begins to happen. God moves. So tonight, don't just pray because it's a routine. Pray because it's your lifeline. Pray until your heart burns with holy fire. Trust until your doubt is silenced. There's a freedom that cannot be found in the systems of this world. It's only found when you bow before the King and say, Lord, I can't do this alone. That's when He moves. That's when heaven intervenes. And that's when every chain, seen and unseen, must break. There are chains that cannot be seen with the human eye. Chains that bind men not in their hands or feet, but in their minds, their spirits, their destinies. Many walk around free in body, yet prisoners within. You see people smiling, laughing, succeeding outwardly, but inwardly, there is a cry that never finds expression. Spiritual bondage is real. It's subtle and silent, yet it dictates the course of a person's life. It whispers limitations, enforces patterns, and creates cycles that repeat across years and generations. Some people don't even realize they are bound. They call it bad luck, delay, or coincidence, yet in the spirit, there are altars, covenants, and yokes at work. These are the unseen chains that hold destinies hostage, making people labor endlessly with little result. When the scripture says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, it is reminding us that life's deepest battles are not fought with the hands, but in the realm of the spirit. A person can be intelligent, gifted, and hardworking, yet find themselves stuck because there are spiritual laws contending with their progress. You see, bondage doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it's in the quiet frustrations, the unexplainable resistance that meets every effort to rise. That's why discernment is powerful. It reveals to you that not everything happening in your life is natural. The tragedy is when people try to solve spiritual problems with physical tools. You can't console a demon. You can't negotiate with darkness. Freedom must be enforced by light and power. That's why the presence of God is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. When light comes, darkness loses its grip. Every believer must reach a point where they confront the invisible forces trying to dictate their outcomes and say, no more. You must understand that freedom is not a gift freely handed out. It is a victory enforced. It requires understanding, prayer, and faith. You can't break what you don't confront, and you can't confront what you don't recognize. The moment you see that your struggle isn't ordinary, that's when deliverance begins. Recognizing the unseen chains is the first step to walking out of them forever. Prayer is not just a religious activity or a ritual we perform to feel spiritual. Prayer is a transaction, a moment where the natural meets the supernatural. It is the bridge between human weakness and divine strength. When a man kneels to pray, he is not wasting time. He is engaging eternity. Prayer is how we bring the power of God into the realities of our lives. It is not about sounding holy or repeating words. It is about alignment, surrender, and authority. Through prayer, you are authorizing heaven to interfere in the affairs of men. So many people pray casually, not realizing that every genuine prayer has power to change realities. Prayer is not meant to be routine. It is meant to be warfare. It is the believer's lifeline. When you pray, you are not informing God about your problems. He already knows them. You are enforcing His will over your situation. You are saying, Lord, let your kingdom come. Let your will be done in my life as it is in heaven. And when heaven finds agreement on earth, something begins to shift. The atmosphere changes, the chains break, the yokes are destroyed, and new doors begin to open. Every great move of God begins with a man or a woman who prays. Prayer can change a nation, restore a family, and heal a broken heart. It can uproot demonic foundations and silence voices of accusation in the spirit. When prayer becomes your first response instead of your last resort, you begin to live from a place of power, not fear. But you see, prayer must come from a place of faith, not anxiety. God is not moved by complaints. He is moved by faith expressed in prayer. There are dimensions of victory that cannot be accessed by logic, money, or human strength. They only respond to prayer. You may not have connections, influence, or titles, but if you can pray, you have power. Prayer is what keeps your spirit alive when everything else is falling apart. It's what gives you peace in chaos and strength in weakness. When you pray, you are declaring that your help does not come from the earth, it comes from above. True prayer is not a performance. It's a posture of dependence on God, and through it, Destinies are rewritten. Trusting God is one of the hardest lessons a believer must learn. It is easy to trust Him when things make sense, when prayers are answered quickly, and when doors open without resistance. But real trust begins when logic fails, when time passes and nothing seems to change. That's the place where faith is tested, where the heart must decide whether it will depend on what it sees or what it knows about God. Trusting God means surrendering control, laying down your understanding and saying, even if I don't see the way, I believe you are the way. It is not blind faith. It's confident faith in the character of a faithful God. When God asks you to trust Him, He is not asking you to ignore reality. He is asking you to acknowledge that He is greater than it. Many times we want to understand every detail, to see the full picture, to know why things happen the way they do. But if you could see everything, there would be no need for faith. Faith thrives in mystery. Trust is built in silence. God often hides His plans so that you can learn His heart. When you can't trace His hand, you must learn to trust His nature. Sometimes God delays not because He has forgotten, but because He is preparing something better than what you asked for. He knows what will bless you and what will break you. Every closed door is not rejection. Sometimes it is redirection. The process may be painful, but the purpose is perfect. That is why the scripture says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Your understanding is limited. His wisdom is infinite. Trust is proven in obedience. It's when you step out like Abraham, not knowing where you're going, but believing that God will lead you there. It's when you give like the widow, even when it doesn't make sense. It's when you wait like Hannah, praying year after year, believing that God will remember you. Trust transforms waiting into worship. It turns pain into purpose. It is the bridge between prayer and manifestation. When you truly trust God, you rest, even in uncertainty, because you know that the same God who started the journey will finish it gloriously. When we talk about moving the hand of God, we are not speaking of manipulating Him or forcing Him to act according to our will. No, we are speaking of the mystery of alignment. When the heart of man begins to mirror the heart of God so deeply that heaven responds. The hand of God represents His power, His intervention, His ability to alter the course of events in time. Throughout scripture, we see moments where the prayers, faith, and obedience of men caused God to step into human affairs. When Elijah prayed, the heavens closed. When he prayed again, they opened. When Moses stretched out his rod in obedience, the sea parted. These are not just Bible stories. They are patterns that reveal what happens when faith meets divine authority. You see, there are moments in life when human effort reaches its limit. You have done everything you know to do, yet nothing seems to move. That's when you stop striving and start partnering. Moving the hand of God requires intimacy, not just activity. It's not about loud prayers or long fasting alone. It's about relationship. When your heart beats in rhythm with His will, your words carry weight in the spirit. Heaven recognizes alignment. God moves not just because you speak, but because you speak His language, faith, surrender, and obedience. The hand of God moves where there is honor. Many cry for God to act, yet dishonor His principles, His presence, and His timing. When you learn to honor God sincerely, not just with lips, but with your life, your prayer becomes powerful. Obedience is what gives your prayer authority. Every act of obedience becomes a key that unlocks divine intervention. Sometimes to move the hand of God, you must stand still. You must stop panicking and start trusting. Faith is not proven in noise. It is proven in consistency. When you keep believing, keep praying, keep obeying, even when nothing seems to change, heaven takes record. God's hand may not always move instantly, but when it does, everything changes. One moment of divine intervention can undo years of struggle. The same God who moved for Abraham, Daniel, and David is still moving today. When you yield completely to Him, your life becomes a testimony of what happens when God's hand moves in favor of a surrendered heart. There comes a point in every believer's journey when life itself begins to press you, when the weight of disappointment and confusion threatens to crush your faith. In those moments, God whispers a simple yet profound instruction. Trust me. To trust God is to hand Him the pen of your story and allow Him to write the chapters you cannot understand. It means believing that even in the silence, He is working. Many want to see before they believe, but true faith believes before it sees. Trusting God is not an emotional feeling. It is a decision made in the face of uncertainty. It is saying, Lord, even if nothing changes right now, I still know you are faithful. When the storms of life come, trust becomes your anchor. It holds you when everything else is shaking. Trust reminds you that God's delays are not denials and His silence is not absence. Sometimes God hides because He wants to reveal something deeper than answers. He wants to reveal Himself. It's easy to trust when the bank account is full, when the doors are opening, when people celebrate you. But the real test of trust comes when the prayers seem unanswered, when you're misunderstood, and when you're walking through valleys you didn't choose. God is not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to lean on Him. To lean means to take the weight off yourself and rest it on another. When you lean on God, you release the burden of control and embrace the peace of surrender. The heart that trusts doesn't panic in delay. It rests in assurance. That is why Scripture says, they that trust in the Lord shall be like Mount Zion, which cannot be moved. Trust gives you stability in chaos. It builds a quiet confidence that no circumstance can shake. Every testimony of greatness began with a decision to trust God when it didn't make sense. Joseph trusted in prison. Esther trusted before the king. Job trusted in pain. And each one saw the faithfulness of God. The same God is still faithful today. If you can dare to trust Him, not halfway, but completely, you will see that even the hardest seasons can become holy ground. Because when trust is complete, miracles begin to flow naturally.